Hello everybody, this is Jimmie. A few years ago I was heavily into resin casting, and I made dozens if not hundreds of pieces like this, and I've got them in boxes. I've given them away to friends and family over the years, and I was thinking about these and I thought that they might make nice elements for other projects. And so the idea that I had that I'm going to share with you today is using these dome-shaped pieces here as the centerpiece for trinket boxes. But before we get to that, I thought I would just share a few of these and some of my concerns about using these. For example, this piece here, it's got art in the front of it. Here's a young lady with a bunch of narcotics and some dental equipment on the front, but there are also pieces on the back. Almost all of these are that way. So whatever I did with these, I wanted to be sure that I had both sides visible. So the trinket box I'm going to share with you does that. Here's a few other pieces that you might like. Here are some presidential coins. Oh look, there's a monster on the back who is hungry for Furbies. Here's a couple of medieval soldiers having a battle, and looks like there's a commercial aircraft flying overhead. I made a lot that I call compound castings. These are smaller castings that I then cast into this larger piece. So this took me quite a while to make. Then one day, my girls and I, we got into making little robots, and so we made a whole bunch of them, and then I made molds for them, and I cast those in resin, and I've used those in several of my pieces as well. I had a lot of fun with this, and I keep thinking that one day I may get back to it, but before I do that, I thought I would disposition some of the ones that I've already made. I looked in a drawer in the shop, and lo and behold, there's all my old resin casting molds. I'm kind of stoked about the idea of getting back into this. This is my prototype that I did here, and you can see that it's two parts here, obviously. The base is pretty straightforward. I cut this like a base for a canister, and I've got a rabbit fit here on the rim. But the top is two parts here. The domes, in a lot of cases, I'll have artwork on the bottom of them as well as the top. So I don't want to lose this art here, and I want this to be exposed. So the top has to be a ring. So the way this looks is the dome is recessed into a rabbet on the top here, maybe 1/8 of an inch or so down in, and it's got a nice tight fit. And then I've got that glued into the ring with some gel CA, and that works very well for the resin and the wood. And then I also cut a rabbet in the base of it so that I have a register for the bottom. So the most challenging part of this was figuring out how to cut these rings, and so I'll show you how I did that. Start by drilling a center hole for each of the discs, and then on to cutting the center out with a fly cutter. I feel this is kind of dangerous, and I didn't like doing it. So I changed my method after I finished this first piece. Also, it produces kind of a raggedy finish on the inside. So I went and bought a 2 3/4 inch hole saw, and I'm glad I did because this produced a much nicer finish to the inside of the ring. So now I've got the ring in the lathe, and I'm turning the rabbet to fit the dome into, and this is a trial and error process. You want a nice snug fit. And that looks pretty good, so I'm just cleaning up the outside of the ring, doing a little sanding to as much as I can do with the ring on this way, and it looks good. This is going to be good. So now I've flipped it over, and I'm cutting the rabbet on the ring to register with the canister part of the box. Our ring for the dome top is rough cut on the lathe at this point, and so before we proceed, want to clean up this inside surface. We cut this on the drill press here, and it left a little bit of a burned surface. So the perfect tool for that is a spindle sander. Much improved. For my bottoms, I like to do stacked or laminated canisters, and so I've got some glue ups here in progress for this particular project. I believe I've got sapelli here, and I think this is maple. I'm not entirely sure. It's a secondary wood that's used for cabinet making. It was taken out of a drawer. I'm using a cutoff tool to clean up this blank. I learned this watching a video that Keith Barrow did. Couldn't get the whole blank with this tool, but I got about half of it and it worked pretty well. I switched over to my carbide cutter to rough out the rest of this thing. The carbide cutter is not going to give me anything close to a final finish, but it's great for hogging out all the excess material. Here we're just establishing a mortise so I can flip the piece and lock it onto the D3 chuck. Just using a spindle gouge to clean up the outside diameter of the box. Transferring the diameter of the lid to the base, and we're ready to start hogging the material out. I'm using my diamond cutoff tool here to establish the inside diameter of the canister, and then I'm going to switch to my carbide cutter to get the bulk of the material out. With the bulk of the material removed, I switched to my box scraper, and I'll kind of refine the wall on the inside so that I can go to final sanding. Just transferring the lid dimensions over to my canister base, and I'll cut the rabbet there to receive the top. This is a trial and error process, and I'll go back and forth 2 or 3 times until I get a good fit. And I made this little disc here, and what that's for is for my live center to be able to push the lid and the base as a unit here. Now, why did I paint that red? Well, I have a tendency to set stuff down in my shop and then never see it again, so I thought I would paint it a color where I can actually find it down the road. And of course I set it down and I spent 10 minutes looking for it today. So the red paint really didn't help me achieve the goal. I'm turning the ring and the base together, and this kind of helps me contour both pieces so that they'll match a little better. I think that's pretty good. I think these have about the same angle here, so I think that's starting to look like they go together there. Sanding is complete. So I'm using my good old paste wax, and this sapelli in particular, this dry dimensional wood that I have, really seems to soak the stuff up, and so I'm going to let this sit overnight, and I'll put another application on tomorrow. So take our speed racer, see that? Pop it in the ring here. It's a little bit tight on this one. I may have to open up this ring just a little bit. There we go. I think that's going to be pretty cool. So we'll let that sit overnight. I clean my shop up at the end of each day, just get the big stuff up. And yesterday I had my cutting tools sitting all over the place here, and I was putting away one of the gouges, and I fumbled the thing, and wouldn't you know it, it dropped right onto my work here and put this nice little nick here. And it's just a little beyond what I can sand out. I'll take my spindle gouge, and I've got to clean that up and then resand the piece. Unbelievable. Well, I got more excited probably than I needed to. It came right out. But doesn't that always happen? My goodness. You know, if you drop buttered toast, what are the odds that it's going to land face down, you know? Well, I've still got this mortise, and I want to eliminate that, but I'm not going to take it flat across the bottom. I'm going to leave a foot on it. So how do we attach the speed racer resin dome to the wooden base? I've got a nice tight fit here, between these two pieces. And what I do is I just use a little bit of CA super glue. This is a gel, and what I'll do is I'll just apply a little bit to the rabbet here that I put in here, right all around the inside. I'll be very careful with how I put it in here because I don't want it squeezing out of there, getting outside of this joint here. So I'll use this little stick to kind of help me out here. One little thing just to make sure that you get a good bond is when I did my paste wax finish on the ring itself, I did not put the finish inside the rabbet. So this is raw wood in here with no wax on it. And then what I'll do is I'll roughen this area right here on the what I call the meniscus of the dome, and I'll just make a slightly rough surface so that when I put the epoxy or excuse me, the CA in here, I'll have a nice joint between the two materials. I really like this dollar store gel. This stuff works pretty good. It's not drippy, and so it kind of goes and stays where you put it. So I'm just putting it right around here in the rabbet joint here, and then I'll take my little piece of bamboo skewer and just kind of smear it around in there, make sure I've got good coverage all around. And I don't want any extra that's not necessary because that will squeeze out, and when that happens you got a little bit of a mess. So there's a little bit of extra here. Just kind of carefully take that off of there with my finger. Now with this gel you have a few minutes to mess around with it, and that does look pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and pop that in there, and I snapped it into place. It feels good, and I do not see any of it coming out either around the top joint or the inside here. We've given it a few minutes to dry here, and it's a good, nice, strong joint. So I don't think I'll ever need to worry about these two pieces separating from each other. So let's just see how the final piece looks here. I am just not happy with the fit between the top and the base here. I cut this thing down a little bit sloppy, so I've decided to go ahead and replace this with a different top here. So here's another one that I had made earlier. This is the dome that I did years ago, and that one has a much more perfect fit with this. So that's the top I'm going to go with on this particular box. She looks pretty happy there with the wires coming out of her. Speed Racer needn't worry. Didn't work with this box the way I really wanted it to, but I'll just put it over here with these others that I've made, and I will cut a box that is a good fit for that particular lid. Well, this is Jimmy saying thanks for watching. Please leave me a comment and a like, and if you're not a subscriber, I sure hope you'll join the population of subscribers for the Stuart Arts YouTube channel. Have a great day.